Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Shit Talk. On this episode, we have a chat to Choi. The reason we have a chat is because she is a black belt in Taekwondo and also going for, it's a bit, I'll leave it for you to listen to in the podcast. She does a variation, like a style that is belted, the actual martial arts version of Qigong. I can't actually pronounce it, so I'm not going to butcher that. Just listen to the episode of Qigong, and she's embodied this martial art for around a decade now. She runs a free school group. I'll link to it below as well, because as time went by, she ran out of time, we both kind of run out of time, so I kind of brought it to an abrupt end, but I'll link to that now below anyway. If you're wanting to check out her style of embodiment, Qigong, and that somatic healing, like if you're feeling dysregulated in your body, that kind of thing, or you're looking for a more, like an exercise that gives you energy rather than takes energy away. Like I think a lot of the exercises that we do are very exhausting and they tax the central nervous system. A martial art like Qigong, while it is still an exercise, still burns calories, it actually energizes the system. So it will add to most other styles of exercise that you do and most other martial arts. I have done a little bit of work with Anna, but I do want to do quite a bit more. So this is her school group and I'll link to it down below. But I'm pretty excited to chat because she's going for a second black belt. And the reason, I'm very obsessed with how belts relate to jiu-jitsu and to other martial arts. How do we keep the martial arts pure while still maintaining the sporting and really effectiveness of the martial art? Now, of course, there's no real definitive answer, but I feel like chatting about martial arts, belts, how progression is delineated and marked, and then how that progresses over time. Like if we all stayed 20, it'd be easy to obviously track. But as we age, we get more knowledge, but we get less physical ability. So yeah, we had a little bit of an interesting chat. Unfortunately, we had to cut it short. So I didn't get to ask her for her links and the best way to find her. So I'll just link to her school group down below. But sit back, have a bit of a listen, see what you reckon of two fairly experienced martial artists talking about belts, gradings, progression within their sport, and how you actually maintain the purity within a given martial art over time. Obviously, we don't come to an answer, but still interesting. And listen to the podcast. Tell me what you reckon. Drop a comment and enjoy the podcast with Choi. Yeah, I'll give you just a quick sort of preface of exactly why I have you on, but then also I don't know how much you know about like jiu-jitsu at all.
Not about jiu-jitsu much.
Nah. So just for context, I'll give you a little bit of a background of like what jiu-jitsu is, and then like that'll kind of explain why I'm interested to have you on. So jiu-jitsu is you know how it's just pretty much the grappling. Like it did come down from like the Gracies using it for MMA and then like the cage fighting and all that kind of thing. But then it kind of got systemized and the strikes like are pretty much taken out. So
Really?
So these days we have like traditionally we always had our gi on and our belts on, but we also did like a little bit of no gi, but most of the time it was, gis, belts, and like you go into your classes. And so the typical thing with belts for jiu-jitsu was take about, let's say you trained what's consistent over like 10 years, but let's say we turned up to the gym from day one, we'll just make it super standard. Each week you train 4 times a week. Then after 2 years, you would get your blue belt. And then after another 2 years, you get your purple belt. And then after another 2 years, your brown. And it's usually around about that. So it's to go from white to black is typically a 10-year journey.
And there's 5 belts then?
There's 5 belts. So you've got white, blue, purple, brown, and black. And then depending on the schools, like some schools have got like, they do throw an interim belt in there between white and blue. And
stripe.
But then quite typically like the vertical stripe, which you might have on yours, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we do stripes.
Yeah. But also, you know how on on the belt, there's that block on one end. There's like a bar that's about like this big. Yeah. We also typically put 4 stripes on that bar. So
on the black or on all of them?
No, just on that little black section on the end of your belt. So let's say you were a white belt and you'd been training for 6 months, then you'd typically get about 1 stripe and then another stripe. And then once you've got the 4 stripes
engaged throughout
belt,
the 2 years.
That's
it helps.
right.
I was going to say 2 years is a long time.
It's a long time to, that's cool.
Oops, no, you can't see it. This way. Okay, sorry, this is my lighting. You can't,
nice.
it's right.
Yeah, that's why you look so good on there, because you've got yourself perfectly lit up.
Right there. Okay, you can see it.
Yeah, you got the belts over the back there.
So we have white, yellow, green, blue, but red, but we have like the stripe, then there's the plume, and then the black. It's actually similar, I guess. There's
right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah.
Yeah.
It took 5 years though. It's not as long.
So the whole thing will take about 5 years in
for me, every school's different. Every school's so different, how fast they promote. Some of them are just for money and you just pay, and you can only have like 12 weeks in between each belt test, and they just go through. Others are like, the next school I went to was like really super strict, and it would take years. Yeah.
Right.
So the level of what you do in the test is different, right? I mean, it's either commercial thing or like, in Korea, it's like very intense and different, 100%. Everyone
I know that the style you do is super traditional, right? Like you follow like a very like old school kind of.
Both of my schools were,
Yeah, and that's why I was super excited to talk to you, because one, I don't know too much about it, and then I wanted to give you like the context of the problem that I'm seeing a lot.
I saw when I was listening to other calls about the stripes. Yeah. Which I had my opinion too, but
so that's why I'm like, I'll just give you a little bit of a context.
I know I don't want to say it all now because
exactly, because I'm gonna So traditionally that's how it goes, but then also like the jiu-jitsu community gets really behind that, and they're like, well, you should never get your belt too soon. It should be like 10 years, or like for me, it took me 12 years to get my black belt, So then when you, I guess when you sort of, there becomes like a weird sort of a cultural thing where it needs to be like certain amounts. But then most of the time, like it's because it's such a newish kind of a martial art, it comes from like, originally from the samurais.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Yes. So originally it was the way of the samurai. Yeah. And then it was judo.
It's a very beautiful sport, but yes.
Yeah. And then judo is like an extremely beautiful sport, very violent and like extremely applicable. But then it kind of like brought it across from Japan to Brazil using his judo styles, and part of judo is the niwaza, which is just the ground fighting. So sometimes like when you get a throw but it's not clean, they don't end the fight. They give you like 30 seconds to kind of see if you can get a submission on the ground. So this guy, Maeda, that traveled over to Brazil, he was extremely good at that. And so, then he taught the Gracies how to do that. And they pretty much systemized their fighting around that niwaza part, which is normally, it's only like a really short thing, but they've kind of turned it into a whole martial art of itself. And smartly so. They branded it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, although really it's Japanese.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the contention is, right, because it was quite new, when I was coming up through the ranks and that sort of thing, and even still a little bit today, you still get people that kind of feel like it's almost like the blue belts should be able to submit the white belts, and the purple belts should submit the blue belts, that kind of thing.
Equal.
And and it sort of was when like years ago, most of us were in our like 20s and 30s, and we're all, you know what I mean, sort of young, mostly guys. And if there was a girl that did it, they were like super athletic and very strong, and any of the older guys that sort of did it had already like done experience and trained in Brazil and that sort of thing. So it was very much like that.
Yeah.
These days we've like
diluted and watered down.
Well, but see, no, really, because the core element behind jiu-jitsu is that at the end of the day, at the end of the class, we might go in and we might learn some techniques and do some drills and that sort of thing, or play some different like ecological style games. But at the end of the class, we pretty much go, right, slap hands, bump knuckles. Because there's no strikes, we can go at 100%. So like we're rolling, you try as hard as you can to like make me like tap, and I do the same on you. And it's, so it keeps like a real level of authenticity.
I see.
However, as the sport progresses, it becomes more and more applicable. Like it's a great way to get cardio, so it's good self-defense. It's really good for like just confidence in general, just like that general knowing how to like move your body. So it's good for like police officers and people that work in psych wards and that sort of thing. It's super handy. But then you also get like older people starting, you know, like having a bit of a sort of in your 40s or whatever. I haven't done any sports since I was 20. Let's get into it. So you have all of these different ages, and you've got kids coming through. So you've got all of these different things, and then plus the no-gi element. So it gets very hard to say, hey, well, what about, how come this blue belt can submit the brown belts? How come, and I'm like, well, it's not really exactly just that anymore. It's kind of evolved. So
I
the way
see.
I sort of break it
I'm
down
so
for
sorry, I
people.
have to interrupt, but I have a hard stop at 9:30, so I only have 15 minutes if we want to actually
Right.
talk, because I have to
Oh, sorry.
box
I
some
ramble
guests.
on. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So all my thing is trying to like the belts part of it is like cool. It's personal for you or for me and my journey, and so that's what the instructor can be grading on, and it's basically subjective. You know what I mean? It's just like what the coach's opinion is on their student, and then vice versa. But then there's the sports side. So if you're going to compete, I know we still do the belts, but I'm like, try to in your head when I'm talking to my students, I'm like, try to delineate the two out. So your belt doesn't look the same in a role as the next person's belt. It's a very different kind of a
Do you
thing.
do competition?
Yes. Yes, I've
You do
competed
personally, but your
multiple
students?
times at all belts. Yeah.
Okay.
But still, you've got points, but like a lot of the fights either win by like a choke or a joint lock or something like that. So
Is it
submissions
more
are,
in the competition? Is it more? It's more contact, right? Or it's
it's
still
100% physical contact. Yeah, full
yeah,
strength.
full. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
But like it's like broken up into weight categories and
Yeah.
belt categories
Yes.
as well as age categories.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a fair bit. But then you can see, but because the IBJJF breaks down the sport into the belt categories, then it creates another dynamic of trying to mix the martial art in with the sport side of it, which to me personally, that's another thing I disagree with. I like the way that some competitions do it, where they go, you're beginner for say the first year and a half, then you're intermediate and you're advanced. So it's not actually done by the belts. But
Interesting.
yeah, so
Okay.
my question, yeah, so for the listener, well, for me really, your style is Qigong. Did you just call it Qigong?
Yeah, Qigong is like the broad category. There's not competition. I mean, there's Tai Chi competitions that are very intense. Tai Chi is a type of Qigong, and then I do Tanmudo, which is like a Korean style Tai Chi. Very unknown. I mean, the teacher's still alive that created it, who's an enlightened energy master. So that's what I teach primarily is Tanmudo, which is a type of Qigong. Nobody knows what Dhamma is, so I just say Qigong.
Yeah.
But I'm also a black belt in Taekwondo. So there's definitely overlapping elements to bring in for
Yes.
students. Yeah.
And so you're already a black belt in Taekwondo, but then you've gone, so you're just about going for your black belt in Qigong as well now, right?
Yeah, this summer. But if it's very different, like it's been 11 years as a student in Hanmudo and Qigong, and then for Taekwondo, it's about 7, 8 years. So um, the process of which to get your belt is much less intense. It's more like you go for these just intensive weeks, and then you earn the belt at the end when you do like a little test, as opposed to Taekwondo is what, you know, you're doing 5 minute planks, you're doing mile runs, you're doing 30 minutes of, they tire you out completely. And then you start the 4 hour test and you're sparring against three people one on one. And, it's very intense.
Yeah.
Training takes 6 months to a year to just focus to even make it. to the black belt test, right?
Yes, I did freestyle martial arts, and that was based exactly off Taekwondo. My
Oh, okay.
coach at the time, yeah, he was a Taekwondo coach, and so he was like, I'll make it a bit stronger. So yeah, I did all the same gradings, all the same style. I know how hard it is when you're like, you know, when it's months out, you're like, all right, well, I've really got to start getting fit now because it's going to be tough.
It was a
Yeah,
full-time job. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Like we would do blindfolded, like side back kicks, kicking off, like many board breaks, like lots of demos.
Yes. So you've got that real sort of that
The
Taekwondo style of
actual,
like
yeah.
train like 3 or 4 times a week, and then you go for your test, and then if you pass the test, you get the belt kind of thing. But so
Yes.
with how do I say it? Tom Qigong, your style.
Oh, Qigong. How do you say it?
Yeah, how do I say your style?
Oh, Tanmudo.
Tan Mudo.
Dahmudo. Tanmudo.
Tan Mudo. So in
Yeah.
Tan Mudo, your how does the grading work there? Like it's you kind of training like 3 or 4 times a week, I'm guessing,
Well, I
plus
teach
plus
like
doing
4 or 5 times a week. I
yeah.
teach. And then I go to just trainings myself probably twice a week. Um, so 6 times a week or something.
Oh right, so yeah, you're getting in sessions every single day pretty much.
But it's very different. It's a healing martial art. It's not combative. So as far as what we're talking about with stripes, that makes more sense on the Taekwondo side. Yeah.
But then how does the like the progress how is the progression judged? So in sort of jiu-jitsu, it's like knowledge and then application of skill or against a resisting opponent. In Taekwondo, it's basically like as long as you know the techniques for each thing and as long as you're fit enough to sort of carry out the testing, then you'll progress to the next belt. So
Yeah,
in
it's a very
Tanmudo,
clearly delineated, like you have a checklist to make, and it includes an essay, like I had to read the art of war and
oh
how does it
nice,
apply to Taekwondo, write a 5-page essay. So there's the knowledge, right? You're Korean and all the terms you have to learn. Um, there's all the physical fitness tests.
right? So it's very in depth.
And then you have all the actual forms. So I had to start over because each school is different. So I learned all the Taeguk forms, which there's about 8, and they're like 2, 3 minutes long each. And then you have all the board breaks. So there's like power, strength, form, beauty, like all of those aspects. And then did like a blindfolded back hook kick where we have to break a board, and then you do like a 6 board 2-inch demo break. You do something more beautiful. So there's a creative form breaking, and then power breaking, um, and then fighting. So we gear up and fight, and then there's a self-defense part, and then
Right.
so all of that, and then you have to do it with you test with teammates, and so that's actually the hardest part is doing everything in sync, the forms with other people. So then requires a lot of extra practice than if you were solo. Um, so that was my first school, and then I switched schools, um, and that I was actually training with grand champions, um, who are mostly all teenagers. I was like the only adult. I'm 43, so I was the old person, and um, that was also I don't know if it was more intense. It was very different. They emphasized less self-defense and way more on weapons and forms, uh, and they were much more conditioned. The conditioning was way harder. They would just do like every other Saturday, like 4-hour conditionings, like just running and doing crazy things. And on the competition team. So the competition team trains anywhere from 20 hours a week or so. I mean, these are kids too, mostly teenagers, like 12 to 18,
Yeah.
devoting their life. And then they compete like every other weekend at tournaments. So I was a recreation student training 3 times a week still, but like having to spar with these people, it was always terrifying to me. And you
Yeah.
get very injured. So that was always
Right.
my thing, which is why I pivoted to Don Mudo, which is way more gentle, and we're doing all the things, just not combat. There's no combat in Don
Oh,
Mudo.
so there isn't actual like you're not actually fighting in the tests or anything
No,
like
not in
that.
Don Mudo.
Right. But you do have to demonstrate like a level of knowledge and a knowledge of like the specific katas and that you go through to harness the energy, that sort of a thing.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's way
So,
about a way of being. It's about embodiment. It's more spiritual. It's you can't like it's about effort. It's about you have to embody. I can't explain it other than the form itself when you're doing
mm,
like that.
yeah. Yeah,
Less
so you really
strength.
need to be completely present and like feeling the energy up from the ground or move or like, yeah, the different styles and that kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's and that one has like it's much more accessible for older people and so forth. Um,
Mm.
so mostly it's senior, like actually more seniors that are doing that because they know it's imperative for their health at that point to continue.
100%.
Holistic approach of it. Yeah.
And then who is the person, like how is it sort of judged? Do you have like let's say, because you're going for your basically your black belt, won't you be? Right, like
Mhm.
and then you'll have like, do you have like a panel or do you just have a coach that's like, okay, yep, that's, you've checked the
You go
box
for these
there.
40-hour like week trainings and then you have a curriculum. So there's a bunch of different techniques and then a bunch of forms and then you perform at the end in front of like four of the masters and then that's it. Yeah. And then
Oh
you have
wow.
and
So
then you
it's a
have
full week of like embodying techniques, like, yeah.
yeah, you
And do you
sleep
have
it.
many
You're working
people
like
that are
eight, ten
there?
hours a day, just training. Yeah. It's an
Right.
intensive, it's like a boot camp. But it's
So
funny because our grandmaster that is the main teacher, he and his whole background is actually in Hapkido and Taekwondo. He's a seventh degree master, like black belt, and all those many different disciplines. And he has his own Taekwondo school and so forth. So he he says that what we learn in a week is faster than what he can teach in like 1 or 2 years to his regular students that come every week. So I thought
right,
that was
right.
interesting. But yeah,
That is very interesting. And are
but
you
it
going to
makes
go
sense because
on?
we're like so focused on just that's all we're doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
And when you're working with energy and that sort of thing, it's not the same as like working out. Like if you work out really hard in 2 hours, like you're done, you can't. But if when you're
We
working with energy,
meditate, we learn
ex-
all the Tao principles that there's a huge depth of the Tao. I mean, obviously the living Tao is like 9,000 years old. There's tons of wisdom inside of it to learn. So um, of why, like what is the meaning of the characters behind Tan Mu though? How does that tie into the
exactly, exactly.
principles? How do you integrate into each movement? Like it's much more an art form. I mean, all of martial arts is definitely an art form, but this is like heavily focused on that piece.
Yeah, like weight, timing, balance,
Embodiment, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, so I feel like that's really capturing like the essence of what the martial art was originally designed for, because all of the martial arts come from different like slaves wanting to escape or warriors needing like a hand-to-hand combat style or weapon style as well. So I'm not even really like, no one's 100% sure exactly how belts came into to different things. In jiu-jitsu, the typical thing of like, how did belts come in? It's just like, well, a white belt just got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, so it went through the colors and ended up being black over a period of about 10 or 15 years. That's like the cool old story that's just like folklore, really. But I guess the real question that I wanted to ask you, especially since now I didn't even realize you had, well, you'll soon have two different black belts in different sports, and like being around it for as long as you have, like a decade in martial arts, over a decade. What is your like opinion on how belts can kind of get commercialized, and then, but if without them, it kind of seems a little bit. It's almost like you need the commercialization to keep people interested and keep people training. But then if you over commercialize it, then it kind of waters it down. So
Totally.
like the traditional Taekwondo styles, it's like basically if once you get over 21, like you're probably getting a bit too old for the brutality of going for your black belt. But it's still kind of important on both sides. So how do you sort of weigh that up in your mind?
Yeah, no, so I've never had my own Tojang, so I can't speak as the actual owner of that. When I teach, I go to other gyms and things for Tanmudo, but that's a totally different animal than Taekwondo. So I'll speak to Taekwondo mostly for the rest of this
Okay.
conversation
Yep.
as it pertains. So I remember my fellow black belt where I trained in my second school I went to was supposedly a second degree, but it was very clear whether it was physical fitness, knowledge. He was good, but like compared to the school we were in, he was probably the level of like intermediate, low intermediate, right? It was very confusing because we on every school honors the black belt, and it just was obvious in sparring matches and anything, the difference. And so that was an example of a school. He was a transfer from a school that you pay the money and it was kind of more towards, I would say, commercialization. And it was pretty easy to get your second degree black belt. Um, they still had their checklist and things, but it was anyway. So that was one example. Um, versus me, when I came in, I basically had to start all over again in this other school, despite being a black belt, because they had a different curriculum, and I wanted the respect of doing their curriculum. So I was like with the 7 year olds, like learning it all over again with like that. So that was the other extreme. I think they pushed too hard towards being the real thing because it was 2 years before I could even do parts of getting my second degree. Um, like I was ready to do a second degree after training, 8 hours a week or whatever for 2 years. Um, not 8 hours, but probably 4 hours. So, um, I don't have a good answer. I've seen of the extreme of commercialization versus not diluting it. I think it's a blend. Like I had two extreme, or I witnessed two extremes, and I think it's in the middle. Again, because as someone going for a second degree, uh, because it was too long, I actually ended up leaving this school, um, and I'm pursuing others, not because of that, but it was other things too. But anyway, so I don't. It's just finding that balance of authentic training that doesn't dilute with enticing people, giving them enough wins so they don't give up because it's a hard sport. If you don't get taken out by injury, which most adults did, I just saw so many people churning through, they couldn't even like make it. They couldn't even
Yeah.
survive the practices at the second school that was super intense.
Right.
Like break their back. Yeah, it was bad. I was
And
kind of
that's where I have a little bit of a problem because I'm like, well, people that are a bit smaller or a bit older or with pre-existing injuries tend to be the people that get hurt and then driven away from the sport.
totally.
But as far as martial arts and confidence in day-to-day life is concerned, they're the people that can actually benefit from the martial arts the most. They kind of get sort of pushed out in the attempt to achieve like a little piece
Yeah,
of
it's
fabric.
sad.
So
Yeah.
that's why I'm like I try to have this conversation with as many people as I can because I'm like I don't really know what the answer is. But nobody really seems to be talking about like what the answer is and how do we keep the art form pure in like a lot of different martial arts while still being inclusive to the people that can benefit from the sport the most. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you are in the style, the more non, it's combative, but not as it can be more gentle, and that's what Tan Mudo does. So that's why I'm focused there on delivering that because it does exactly all those things. It still has the purity of the spiritual and physical strength and flexibility and all of that, while not having to worry about getting freaking injured for life. And the fear, like it got to a point where I was so scared to spar these like national grand champions that had twice as long legs as me. Like we were never in our weight class. And then as the black belt, she kind of threw me against because I was the only person that was a worthy opponent for these kids that were really good. But I was like a punching bag. It felt like. Um, yeah, I had to fight the guys. Like it was just, yeah, it was like I
That's
mean, I got good at like facing my fear, but then it was like a lot of tension created from that too. And yeah. And I was yearning to have adults with me, but like they all were leaving, and I knew, like, you could see they're not going to last because they weren't trained yet, and it was just jumping to this high level versus a recreational level. So for that school, they should just stuck to competition because that's what they did. And I think if you were a true recreation, then you could do more what you're talking about, where it's, you're here to cultivate something beyond just physical strength and winning. It's not about winning. This school was about winning.
Yeah.
They had to go that hard. I understand. And they won. They like would all of them would win like 5 gold medals at the national level, go to the Junior Olympics. Like it was intense. I mean, that's just how it is. But on the recreation side, yeah, how do you keep enticing them? And then I think but if you have a good, I think it boils down to leadership, and it boils down to the master or whatever I don't know what you call it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but if you have someone that has, it really does flow down from the leader. And if the leader is there for the right reasons and has the curriculum milestones, including not just physical, but the spiritual and the emotional aspects, which most schools don't, I think you could transform hard martial arts into the aspects that healing martial arts provide in a wonderful way. That would become what black belt really is embodying your full potential. It's not the belt, right? That's what we see at the test. It's not what you're wearing, but who you've become. And that's, if we keep focused there on the, perseverance, discipline, all the things, then that, I wish they had a checklist based on those character traits and then ways that could manifest, but it'll be different for each person. But anyway,
Yeah.
How I would organize it.
I love that. It's not the belt that you're wearing, it's who you've become. So true in like most aspects of life, or all of the things that are like really important to us, like relationships and business and our sport and that kind of a thing. That's really what it's about, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm aware that I've gone over your time, so we better wrap this up.